You're listening to the Jiu Jitsu Lou podcast, and I'm Lou Temlett. I'm guessing you're having a good day because either you've been on the mats, considering getting on the mats, or maybe you made a new friend at an IBJJF competition. I'm so happy you're here listening or watching this episode. Please don't tap out before the end. When you want to keep taking the next step, start training jiu-jitsu. I'd like to welcome Cara Waller to my podcast. Hi Cara, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much. I wasn't expecting you to say that, but I'm very grateful. 48 today, which is quite incredible achievement. Level 48 rather than 47. I feel quite, I'm getting through the steps and taking the next steps as we've kind of introduced. So we met on Instagram, probably quite a bit more than a year ago, but we met in person around about a year ago in Barcelona at the IBJJF Masters in Barcelona, of course, which was, you were an absolute lifesaver to me. And I was so grateful, A, to have an Instagram follower like you, and B, to meet you in person, to kind of save me, because I travelled with my two young children over to Barcelona to get just a single match at my rank and my age. I had to compromise my age, so I was pretending to be a 30-year-old rather than a 40-something-year-old. But but we, I didn't have anyone shouting my corner. I didn't have anyone else there that I knew apart from you. So there were probably, 1,000 or more people in this arena, and you were the only person that I knew. So I was incredibly grateful that you were there. So I just want to say thank you to start with. Tell me what you were doing at the IBJJF Masters in Barcelona for yourself and who you went along with.
So I remember seeing on your Instagram actually that you were going for your very first competition ever was going to be one of the big ones. I remember seeing that you were going on your own with your two kids, and I remember thinking, how brave, like hats off to you, that was amazing. But it really made me reflect at the same time when I saw that. I literally just thought how lucky I've been. I'd been training at that point consistently anyway, but we'd been training so much for about 4 to 6 months, I think, prior to that competition in the lead up as a team. We had a WhatsApp group, we were planning the trip, we were training, not daily, but we were training a lot. There was blood, sweat and tears on the mat from everybody at some point. And we'd had this amazing kind of group friend thing going on where we were all going out to Barcelona. And I thought, actually, do you know what? I've never competed on my own. I've never done that. I've always had somebody there. And it's so valuable to have, like you say, even just one person, because when you step on the mat to compete, it's just you, your opponent, and you are kind of on your own in that moment. So the value that's there in having just one person that just over there is got your back, is going to be in your corner, is going to be shouting and cheering you on and willing you to do well, trying to shout useful things. I don't think you heard a single word that I said, but I was trying to shout some helpful things. Like you said, we'd already been friends on Instagram and sort of chatted once or twice. So it was really nice to meet you in person. But I remember as well trying really hard not to project how I felt onto you, because I remember, you said you were a white belt at the time. It was your your first competition. It was one of the big ones, and that made me think about when I first competed. And how nervous I felt. My gosh, I felt so nervous. I just wanted to run out of the room. But on the day, you were nervous. You could tell that you were nervous, but
Yeah.
you seemed so excited to be there and so happy to be there. And I've heard you talk about it since, and at the time saying you just wanted to go and do it, and you wanted to fight as many
Yeah.
people as you could, and you just wanted to experience it, and that's what you were there for. And I really got that from you on the day, and I just thought, good for you, good for you. It was amazing, and you did
Oh,
brilliantly.
thank you. I will take that, because we can often give ourselves such a hard time. We can
Hmm.
look back at the fight footage and everything else and go, oh, well, I'm not even going to say the words. But you were an absolute lifesaver. And when you were speaking then, actually, me going on my own, I kind of felt then, reflecting some sadness, that I was on my own and I didn't go with a team.
Mm.
But equally, um, I was appreciative of that you had that support, and there were lots of other people. So, kind of from you being my kind of core contact in Barcelona,
Yeah,
but you had that support network behind you, kind of, feeding in. And I, obviously, we've recently met again at RGA Buckingham, and
yeah,
I recognised a few of the faces, and a few of those faces recognised me when I turned
yeah.
up at your opening kind of launch party, which was lovely. Whether they really remember me or not is another matter, but I felt equally at home in your presence, and at a new location as well. So that was
I think that's the thing.
extended thanks.
Oh, yeah. No, people do remember you definitely, and I think that's the team that I'm in, that I train with and I compete with. That is the vibe. If you're a friend of one
Yeah,
person, you're a friend of everybody. Everybody's
yeah.
welcome and everybody is supported. So yeah, you're an extended family member now.
I like that. I like that. I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll be part of anyone's family. It's fine.
Yeah.
Um, So, talk me through your competition at in Barcelona, because I think I was panicking in my hotel at that point, because yours was a little bit earlier in the day. So, talk me through your competition in Barcelona.
Yeah, so I only had one fight in Barcelona. I think I've had a lot of competitions where I've gone into a straight final. So for me to have more than one opponent is quite unusual. I
Yeah,
fight in the heavyweight category. I'm a Masters one. So I think, yeah, there's not always lots of people to fight. I've similarly to you, I've fought in adult divisions. I've gone down in age. I'm never fighting in adult divisions again. I mean, never say never, but I've done that. I've done that once as a master, and
yeah,
never again. But yeah, I think I was on earlier in the day, like you said. Sort of got up. There were three of us from the team fighting that day, so I think all of the others were black belts and brown belts in the team. They were on the Saturday, so we kind of had the chance to see them, send them in first to check it out.
I,
They'd all
I
done
like
the
that. You send the more professional, the more experienced
yeah,
competitors in first.
yeah.
Yeah, it was good. I
In you
very
go.
much enjoyed
Report back.
watching the high ranking athletes the day before, because me and the kids, we just kind of were in awe at the level of jiu-jitsu
Yeah,
that we'd not seen. I mean, we'd never been to an international competition like that before, and like you say, it
yeah,
was a big event. um, yeah,
yeah.
it was
I mean,
exceptional.
comparatively, the year before I went to the Europeans in Paris, and obviously the competition that we're talking about was the European Masters. So it was actually quite chilled. Comparing it to the kind of the main European competition, that was
Yeah.
wild. That was loud. That was busy. It's amazing atmosphere at both, but
Mm.
quite a different atmosphere at both. So I found it still busy. Still, there's still a buzz in the room, but it was quite a lot calmer. I found, which I quite liked. But yeah,
Yes.
I had a straight final. it was nice actually saying about, the guys, the sort of brown and black belt team members going the day before, because they'd all had sort of very varied levels of success in terms of the actual competition, whether they won or lost. And it was nice to see. I think there were three of us that were blue belts at the time. And we were all obviously nervous, sort of waiting for our turn to go tomorrow, and kind of watching them deal with their wins or deal with their losses, and the support that they had from the team either way, the celebration that they had from the team for getting on the mats and doing the thing either way was really kind of reassuring. So yeah, when it came to it, I lost my fight. I was really proud of the fight actually. I trained really hard for it, as I always have to compete. I'd done a lot of preparation, and the main thing that I remember when I came off the mat is my main coach, Dan, who I think you met at the opening, Daniel Lewis. I came off the mat and he said to me, "I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud to be your teammate, because I know watching that fight that you 6 months ago would have given up, and you did not give up for 1 second." I got to do some decent jiu-jitsu. And I've always said, actually, in terms of competing, I would rather lose the fight but have done some good jiu-jitsu than kind of had an easy fight and won it. Or, I don't mind if I win or if I lose at competition, as long as I feel like I fought well. It doesn't matter. Obviously I want to win. We all want to win. It's, we want the medal. We want to go, yeah, I won that fight. But win or lose, if I think that I got to try some new things that I've been working on, or I've got to just do some good jiu-jitsu and have a good scrap, then the actual result of the fight I'm fine with. So it was a nice acknowledgement to have when I stepped off the mat. And I agreed with him actually on reflection. At the time I was just sort of like, oh, I lost and it felt terrible. But yeah, on reflection, those words kind of stayed with me and I thought, it's true. I pulled guard and it didn't go as I planned, because she just smashed past my guard in a second. But yeah, me 6 months before that would have just been in a bottom position for the rest of the fight and been struggling to come back up and get that fight going again. But actually, I remember really calmly thinking, oh, she's passed my guard. Okay, what do I need to do? Oh, I need to do this. I need to get my arm here. I need to get under that. I need to do that. Right now I'm in a deep half. Now I can come up. And I came back up, and the fight continued. So, I mean, the result wasn't amazing for me. I got a default silver and I wanted to throw it straight in the sea.
And it was very close to the arena as well, which was an absolute joy.
Yeah. So I literally wanted to come off the podium and just throw that default medal in the sea. But actually, I didn't throw it in the sea. It's hanging up on a peg that has all of my medals on. And I look at it now and I remember the whole thing, not just that fight. I remember the whole journey, the months beforehand, the eating well, the sleeping well, the training, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the strength training, the trip, the friendship, the camaraderie of all of us just being in it. We were in this fight camp, and that's what that medal represents now. I don't even really think about the fight.
I think it's so lovely. I remember coming away from the arena and you had supported me, and I was kind of walking back to the hotel with the kids and seeing your whole team out for dinner and kind of, just chilling, having a cool time. And, maybe there wasn't quite so much celebration on the Sunday evening, but it was just so lovely to be there as a team. If there were any seats, I would have absolutely come and join you. But next time.
You're welcome. Yeah, we went to Paella afterwards, and we were all flying back home the next morning. But it was nice. It was just really nice at that point. We were all quite tired. It'd been a lot. It'd been a big weekend. But it was that kind of, we'd all just been through that fight camp together. And it was
Yeah,
such a
so
kind of
good.
bonding experience that it was just nice to kind of the calm after the storm, just to
Yeah.
sit and have some wine, some paella, and go, oh, should we go home?
I just want to reflect on the comparison of how you were performing 6 months before and even further back, actually, and then performing on the day, and maybe where you've kind of progressed to now.
Mm-hmm.
You're now a purple belt, which I'm in awe, and I'm very, very pleased that you are a
Oh,
purple belt. I look up to
thank
you
you.
and your experience. And I think, just you're right to kind of stay within the remit of your own performance rather than to reference comparison with other athletes or other individuals or people higher or lower ranked. And I think, that's the thing that jiu-jitsu gives us. It's the comparison of our own performance above anybody else's. um,
Yeah,
I kind of will always hold that very dear to my heart, that comparison is not outside of me anymore. It's very
yeah,
much internal.
yeah.
Um,
I had this conversation actually with somebody that I teach, literally just last week. We were sparring, and I could feel them behaving how I used to behave, and I
mm,
stopped mid roll, and I said to her, "You're not saying anything, but I can hear your mind. I can hear your mind going. I can feel it in how you're rolling with me." And we just stopped and we sat on the mat halfway through the round and we just had the most brilliant conversation. And I could really relate to what she was saying and how she was feeling, because I used to be exactly the same. And I also had a conversation with my main coach Dan again recently about this, and we were talking about when I first started really training with him, kind of full time. I was a very different fighter. I was a very different grappler.
yeah,
And he said to me, when you kind of came to me, you were good, you were decent, but he said you just didn't have this kind of fighting attitude of like, yeah, I'm coming into this round and I'm doing the thing, I'm doing jujitsu. And I said, because I was so in my head, I was so
yeah,
self conscious and thinking, you know, the level in that gym is high, and I felt completely inadequate. And I would go into a round feeling so negative about my own jujitsu
yeah,
and feeling like, oh, I could try this to pass their guard, but that's not going to work on them. Or, okay, well, I know that guard pass, so maybe I could try that. Well, that's not going to work on them either, is it? And so I just wouldn't really try, and that was kind of the attitude that I brought to it without
mm,
wanting to, for that to be how I was feeling about it. And I don't know what changed. I don't know when it changed, but at some point, I think just through carrying on, just through keeping going,
yeah,
at some point, the rounds that I have with Dan now are some of my favorite rounds. He's one of my favorite training partners. And there are sessions and days where I feel like I'm going into battle with him, and I'm going to pass your guard. I'm going to pass your guard. I'm going to pass your guard. And I sometimes get 90% past his guard.
yeah,
And then he'll just do something and I'm straight back at the beginning again. But that really changed at some point where I really go for it, and he said to
yeah,
me the other day, you fight now, and I had a similar conversation with somebody who I teach where I said, I can hear your mind going,
yeah,
and it's almost like, she said to me, she's a blue belt, and she said to me, I just don't feel like I should be a blue belt sometimes. I feel like I'm not good enough or I don't know enough to be a blue belt.
yeah,
And I said, but that's what you're thinking. The way that you move tells me
yeah,
completely different. When
yeah,
you switch that off a bit, the way that you're moving is like a blue belt. There's nothing that's not blue belt about this, and that's
yeah,
brilliant. You know, she and actually a lot of the ladies that I teach are quite similar. I think we all are. I think we all overthink
Yeah.
it. It's
Yeah.
very easy to get into your head and go, oh,
Mm.
should I be wearing this belt?
Yeah.
Am I as good as the other blue belts or purple belts or whatever?
Yeah.
And do I know enough to be wearing this belt? We can get very hung up on that. And it's that comparison, like you say, whereas
Yeah.
actually, I think the best jujitsu that I do is when I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just
Yeah.
doing it because your body learns, your body knows what to do,
Yes.
and you know that kind of instinctive. This is another conversation I had recently about. I was sat at the side of the mat towards the end of a session, and I was watching two white belt guys who were sparring, and I think they're both about 6 months in. And I said, God, I didn't spar like that when I was 6 months in. Like they were doing really well, and they were moving quite instinctively.
Yeah.
And we were saying, I think a lot of the time when you're brand new, you can get really caught up in sort of positional sparring and learning the positions. And okay, I'm underneath mount now. How do I get out?
Yeah.
Whereas I think what's happened with some of the newer guys is they're learning a lot more in kind of concepts, and they are learning the positions. They're learning kind of, we start at A, we go A, B, C, D, and then we get to here and we've passed.
Yeah.
But they're doing a lot more sparring. They're learning a lot more sort of conceptually. And so what
Yeah.
they're not doing is losing that kind of instinct that we have,
Yes.
to just kind of play fight and wrestle and grapple. I think we can
Yeah.
kind of apply so much of a scientific approach to this sometimes, and there's a place for that, absolutely. But I think sometimes just switching your mind off a bit and going, let's just move, and your body knows what to do more than you
Yeah.
think.
I think that's all amazing advice, and trusting ourselves and dropping the thinking, and whoever you are, thinking on the mats that I don't know, I want to say there's no place for it, to be honest. It's pure instinct and muscle memory and just intuition in a way that comes with time, or maybe comes with just not having the fear or the overthinking mindset, um,
Yeah.
from the get go. And I think we're all seeing, teammates progressing and developing in quite amazing ways now,
Yeah.
to the point
And
where
this is coming from a prolific overthinker. I have an anxious brain and I overthink pretty much everything in life. So if I'm saying switch your brain off and trust your body,
I love it. We will come to that in a moment. This episode is sponsored by RGA Buckingham. Roger Gracie Academy Buckingham offers world-class Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, no-gi grappling, MMA, wrestling and self-defense classes for adults and children of all levels. They welcome everyone and offer options for families who want to train together, women's only sessions and exclusive discounts for females. When you want to build confidence, fitness and discipline, gain real skills in a supportive and friendly environment, head over to rgabuckingham.com/trial for your free 7-day trial of all their sessions. Train with the best. This is the Jiu-Jitsu Lou podcast with me, Lou Temlett, coming to you from the UK. Go and check out the latest video clips over on jiu.jitsu.lu on Instagram. And as you're listening or watching on your favourite podcast platform, please, please, please drop the show a rating and a review. If not a review, just a rating. Today, I'm having a conversation with Cara Waller. Cara, thank you for all of those stories. And I think so many of us will relate to one or maybe many of those stories in our own journey in Jiu-Jitsu. But let's come on to the overthinking and kind of ADHD, autism, neurodivergent behaviors and characteristics, because you've shared with me prior to us recording and kind of during our conversations, that's a thing for you. Do you want to talk me through some of that journey for you?
Yeah, of course. So as I said, I haven't had an official diagnosis of ADHD yet. I am awaiting my assessment, so I'm quite far along in that process.
Yeah,
But I think, as with most people who start to sort of suspect, have a lot of traits of something like ADHD, you do a lot of research, you do a lot of learning. So the past couple of years has been a lot of, I think I've listened to every podcast, I've read every research paper, every book, on ADHD. And yeah, we're ticking a lot of boxes. So whether the official diagnosis comes or not, all I know at the moment is there are a lot of traits that I have, that
yeah.
are sort of showing ADHD. Um, so yeah, it's been interesting kind of over the last couple of years learning all about that. And it's something,
Yeah.
sort of I can relate back to things from throughout my whole life of where sort of
Yeah.
ADHD has cropped up, and, but you didn't know it at the time. You didn't know what it
So
was and why
I'm
that was.
so I'm kind of taking from our conversation that maybe the overthinking is part of an ADHD kind of characteristic or trait in that sense. How
Yeah.
have you kind of I mean, you have overcome some of the overthinking because you're now kind of thinking outside of that and seeing and hearing other people's overthinking. Um,
Mm.
has that been quite a massive change for you in your behaviours over this amount of time you've been training jiu-jitsu?
Do you know, I don't think I've changed. I don't think I can change that. I think I have a very busy mind and I have a very fast mind. So you kind of, you get maybe an anxious thought, and then the ADHD side comes in and just takes that anxious thought at 100 miles an hour. And
Okay.
I don't think I can change that. I think what's happened is a lot of acceptance and a lot of
Yeah.
gaining knowledge. Um, and this kind of relates back to being surrounded by the right people. I have some really amazing people in my life who know me very well, friends and family and training partners, um, who will quite happily call me out in the nicest way and say, "You're overthinking that." And I've gained enough awareness to go, "Yeah, yeah, I am." Or people who will let me overthink something and just go with it for a minute until I've kind of got it
Yeah.
out of my system. But it's, I do have a lot of awareness. I have a lot of self awareness, and I think it's something that's now helping me to help other people.
Yeah.
So I can have conversations with people from my own experience and say, I know what it's like to feel really nervous to step on the mats, and you've done that today. And I think they can tell that I'm coming from a really genuine place of, I'm not just saying you're doing really well, keep turning up at class, you're progressing. I'm actually
Yeah.
saying, I can see you're nervous, I can see this scares you, I can hear you're overthinking halfway through sparring with you. Let's just talk about that, because actually,
Hmm.
if you can get to that place of, you don't have to switch it off in the sense of stopping yourself from doing the overthinking, because as I said, I don't know if
Yeah.
that's possible. If that's how your brain works, then it is. But
Yeah.
understand that if you can kind of talk to it and have
Yeah.
have that other voice that comes into your mind to say, okay, I see you, I hear you, I know what's happening, we're overthinking, I'm doing jiu-jitsu though, so can you just be a bit quiet? um
I love that. Is
yeah,
that what you say to yourself now? Have you got a little narrative that you
I don't
you
need to as
use?
much now, because I think I just know that. I know that I can go into a class, whether I'm training or teaching, and I can be in that
Yeah.
place of, I might feel a bit anxious, I might feel a bit sort of, whatever's happened in the morning has happened, the day is going how it's going. But then I know
Yeah.
that when I get to the gym, that's my happy place, that's my safe place, my friends are here, and this is the
Yeah.
sport that I love doing. And so as we go into the session, that kind of process just happens now. So by the time we get to sparring, I'm pretty okay.
Yeah.
And that process kind of happens. But I'm kind of finding unexpected joy in identifying and helping that with other people now. And I
Nice.
think that's where you kind of come a little bit full circle, and go, okay, I'm 33. I've been having struggles with this my whole life. I've had to do a lot of learning about how my brain works, why it works that way, how we deal with
Yeah.
that, how we, navigate life with this. But actually, and I'm not saying I'm perfect and I'm, this sort of person who can help everybody else, but if I can kind of go, I know how you're feeling, this is how I deal with it. How can we find a way for you to deal with it? Or how can we accommodate that in this
Nice.
class? Or, what needs to happen for you to
Yeah.
kind of gain that acceptance or work with it? Because, Lord knows I worked against it for many years.
Yes.
um,
Now, before we started recording, you mentioned about being involved with lots of different sports over your time, and having lots of kind of multiple roles in kind of your working life. Tell me a bit about the sports, and then let's move on to the kind of multiple roles, and then what you're doing now with RGA Buckingham.
Yeah, I mean, sports wise, I've always been sporty. I've always, since I was young, throughout school, I danced, I played netball. Those are my two kind of main sports through school. And then through my 20s, I think I did a boot camp, I did boxercise, I did circuit training, I did spinning, I did step class, I went to the gym and just did my own thing. I did 4 years of powerlifting, and then I found jiu-jitsu. So yeah, I've always been a very sporty person.
Yeah.
It's not really until I started jiu-jitsu that I kind of found what I think is genuinely my thing. What makes me think that is it's not something that I do because other people are doing it.
Yeah.
I will be at home on my own and I will watch jujitsu. I will study jujitsu. I will think about and plan the next time I teach what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it. Um, I think it's the one thing, sports wise, in my life that I haven't got to the point of going, oh, I should really go to jujitsu. I don't really want to. I used to do that about the gym.
Yeah.
Don't really want to go to the gym today, but I should.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of done with shoulds. I don't want to do something because I should. I want to do it because I want to do it. And I'm not saying that every jujitsu day is the most perfect jujitsu day ever, but I do know that I always want to go to jujitsu. I never feel like I'm dragging myself there, or
Yeah.
convincing myself out of the door to go to a class. Um, so yeah, it's taken a long time, but I think I found my thing.
Yay! We all love it. I mean, if you're listening to this episode or this show, then you love jiu-jitsu. And if you're not already training jiu-jitsu, there is more than enough evidence here in the Jiu-Jitsu Loop podcast to encourage you to start training.
Yeah.
So tell me about the multiple roles you've had, and kind of what you're doing now.
Yeah, so the last kind of 6 months maybe, it's been quite a transition period for me generally in terms of work life. I've been an event manager for the last 12 years, so I've had sort of a longish career there. But alongside that, I've trained in lots of different things, and kind of, I'm a qualified makeup artist, and I've never worked as a makeup artist. I'm qualified in sports massage therapy, and I've worked in that sort of self-employed for a while, but quite on and off, fairly
Yeah.
non-committal. I've done lots of different things. I've worked in a jewelry shop. I was a coffee barista in prep for a while. I've cleaned. I've done every job, not every job, but I've done a lot of different jobs.
Yeah.
Even within events, I kind of, I was with one company for 6 years. I was with another for 3 years, and then I was freelance for 2 or 3 years as well. And at the moment, I'm working part time for the ambulance service, and I'm teaching jiu-jitsu part time. So yeah, it's quite different from what I've been doing for the last 12 years in events. But yeah, I sort of accidentally fell into teaching jiu-jitsu, having trained
Okay,
jiu-jitsu for a few years.
you need to tell me this story, because I think you've reflected the fact that there've been multiple different sports and activities, and jiu-jitsu is your thing. The should is
Yeah,
out the window, and you want to do it, and it's there for you, and you're there for it.
yeah.
Um, but the teaching, what happened?
I say accidentally fell. I mean, I offered. So I train. There's always been a ladies' class for as long as I've sort of been training. There's always been a ladies' class. For the most part, it was taught by a good friend of mine, Caroline Canane, um, who is incredible. She's a judo black belt. She's a jiu-jitsu black belt. She's an incredible athlete. She was studying her degree in osteopathy, and so every Wednesday she would take the ladies' class. She then kind of finished her qualification and went into full time work. And there was a period of time where the ladies' class kind of struggled to find consistent cover. So
Yeah,
there were kind of a couple of people that were around that would sort of. I don't think they really wanted to teach jiu-jitsu, but they wanted to train. Um, and so they would kind of teach it, and then it kind of fell off the radar a bit. So I wasn't able to make the ladies session to train in it for a long time because of work.
yeah,
And last summer, when I started a new job, I wasn't working Mondays and I wasn't working Wednesdays. So we had a new app that we were using to book our classes at the gym. And I went onto the app and I looked, and there was no ladies class. So I sent a message to Kev, who runs the gym, and I said, Kev, there's no ladies class on the app. I've just noticed, what's happened to the class. And he
yeah.
messaged back and he said, oh, there isn't really anybody who wants to run it at the moment. And before really thinking about it, I just messaged him straight back and said, oh, well, if it means there can be a ladies class, I'd be happy to run it. And
Yeah.
he came straight back to me and said, yeah, brilliant, great, let's do it. And then I sat there and thought, oh my goodness, I've never taught jujitsu. I don't know how to teach jujitsu. How do you teach jujitsu? I've got to teach jujitsu. um, but actually, I say it was kind of an unexpected thing for me. It wasn't something that I was really thinking about getting into, but it's become such a joy,
Yeah.
from the start of kind of sitting down. There's a phrase to teach you have to learn twice. I think until you try and teach something, you don't really understand that phrase. um, and it's completely different to training jiu-jitsu, to have to know something well enough to be able to explain it and demonstrate it to somebody else. It takes some thought, and it's a skill that I've had to develop up until this point, and I will have to continue to develop for a long time to come.
Yeah.
But I found a lot of joy in studying jiu-jitsu with the mindset of teaching it, of sort of planning my sessions and how I'm going to run them, how I'm going to
Yeah.
keep people engaged, you know, and also training with these ladies now is completely different to how I train. If I'm training in a jiu-jitsu class, I'm there for me. I'm there to learn. I'm there to spar
Yeah.
for me. If I'm teaching a class and I'm sparring with the ladies, I'm not really thinking about what I'm doing in that round. I'm thinking about
Yeah.
what they're doing, and I'm trying to spot the gaps. I'm kind of trying to set things up and go, okay, so they're going to pass my guard, they're going to go that way. I'm just going to put that in the way and see what happens. And if that kind of stops them from passing the guard, then I'm trying to take a mental note and go, okay, that's something that
Yeah.
would be helpful for us to cover. Or if they pass my guard, regardless that I've put this frame in or block in their way, then I'm just
Yeah.
grinning because I'm like, yeah, you got it, you did it. That's exactly what you should have done. You know, I
I,
do. I
I,
just feel like an idiot, Lou. I stand at the side
I
of the
love it.
mat when they're all sparring sometimes, and I just find myself smiling.
Good.
It's
I love
amazing.
that.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of pride around all of it. One of the
Yeah,
things that was coming up for me when you were talking was jiu-jitsu is supposed to get you out of trouble, not
yeah,
not into trouble. And I'm not saying teaching is trouble. It's not at all. It sounds like it's really the right place for you, and being
yeah,
able to strategically use your overthinking capacity to understand how other people are moving, to be able to see
yeah,
and feel the gaps in their game, and then to be able to support and coach them to
yeah.
improve. It just sounds like you found your place, Cara.
I think so. It's taken a long time, but yeah, I think so. And I just want to build on that now. You know, like you said,
Yeah.
I'm teaching at RJ Buckingham, and you know, I just want to keep doing that and building on it and see where we go.
Yeah. And what else is coming up for you over the rest of 2025 and maybe beyond? What's in your kind of jiu-jitsu goal calendar?
I haven't got any competitions booked in yet. I haven't yet competed at purple belt, so that's something I'm definitely looking to do. I've competed
Yeah.
since white belt, since the beginning, and I don't plan to stop. So I think more recently it has become a bit more about teaching and learning how to
Yeah.
coach and sort of just getting really stuck into that. That will continue, and you know, I just want to sort of learn how to be the best coach possible, and expand that sort of side of jiu-jitsu. But yeah, in terms of my own jiu-jitsu, I'm just having fun with it at the moment. I think when you haven't got a competition booked in, the pressure's off,
Yeah.
and I'm just sort of having fun with trying new things out and just sparring for fun.
Yeah.
So I definitely will get some competitions booked in,
Good.
and kind of get that more sort of dialed in competitive vibe going again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing, because what I'm doing at the moment is making me really happy.
Good. Um, I don't normally ask specific advice, but I'm feeling a vibe that you might have some specific advice for any women training on the mats, whether we're white belts or blue belts or maybe beyond. But
Mhm.
what advice might you be able to help us with?
I think there are two different directions that I could kind of answer that in, and two kind of main themes that have come up for me and that I've seen come up for other people. One is jujitsu related, and I think that that is to start thinking more in terms of ideas and concepts, and to start thinking about the context behind things. So what I mean by that is when I'm teaching, I know that for my brain, how I like to learn is that I need to understand why I'm doing something. For it to click, I
Yeah.
have to know the why. So I try and give a lot of context when I'm teaching. I try and give the why. I try and say, okay, if we're doing this, we need to do this too. Otherwise, they might be able to do that, you know?
Yeah.
And I've had some really nice feedback about that so far, of people going, oh, I get that now, you know? So I think thinking about things in terms of concepts and understanding why you're doing things, that's going to help you to link in through the rest of your jiu-jitsu. You know, if you
Yeah.
know that I'm going to knee cut pass here, I'm going to need an underhook over here, because if I don't, I've gone in this direction and look what's available for them. They're going to take my back.
Yeah.
You then know that in another position, if that same movement's happening, I'm probably going to need this underhook, or I'm going to need something on this side. So I
Yeah.
think it kind of then allows you to start really thinking about your jujitsu for yourself, rather than, you know, I think there's a place for learning ABCD. We start here, we get to there. This is the
Yeah.
technique. 100%, because there's a lot of detail there for people to learn and understand. But I think understanding the why and
Yeah.
the reasoning behind things then just allows you to apply that in different situations within jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
um, And I think you're then going to start linking things for yourself. And if you start linking things for yourself, you're going to remember it probably a lot faster and better than somebody telling you.
Yes.
So I think, yeah, in terms of jiu-jitsu, that might be some advice. And I think in terms of the actual person doing the jiu-jitsu, in terms of that kind of confidence side of things, especially as women, we do doubt ourselves. You know, I know the more you speak to people, self-doubt and self-esteem, you know, and self-confidence, it comes up time and time again with everybody.
Yeah.
And I think just acknowledging where you're at and sometimes looking back to where you were, because we don't always do that. We're always looking for the next thing. We're always comparing, as you said, outside of ourselves and going, oh, I'm a blue belt. Should I be a blue belt? Am I good enough to be a blue belt? Well, look at your white belt self. Would she have been able to do the things that you're doing now? Probably not. So yes, you should be a blue belt, and you're a good blue belt, you know? And I think I had a conversation with one of the ladies that I teach recently, and afterwards something popped up on my Instagram and I screenshot it and sent it to her because I thought, perfect. And it said something about the reason you can never reach the bar is because you keep raising the bar. And I sent it to her and she said, yeah, spot on, hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what it is. So I think it's that the bar will keep moving because that's, you know, we all want progression. We all want, you know, whether it's to win the next competition or to, you know, submit the person you've never been able to submit or to get the next belt, whatever your goal is, you know, within the sport. Just look back as well, you know, and look back with pride of where you've been and acknowledge where you are now, because we've all come a long way. If you've been training for 6 months, that's probably the hardest 6 months you're going to have in jiu-jitsu. So you've come an awful long way. If you've been training for 5 years, you've come a really long way, you know. So just look back as well and acknowledge the good that you've done. Just try and switch your mind off a little bit.
Good. And how can people follow? Thank you for that. How can people follow your journey, Cara?
Mainly on Instagram. So I am Cara Rose BJJ on Instagram, and I teach every Monday evening at RGA Buckingham. So come and train.
Fantastic. And I can, from my own experience, say that RGA Buckingham is an incredible space, and you will be welcomed with open arms and Cara at the door welcoming you. Cara, thank you so much for opening up and sharing your journey and all of those amazing experiences and knowledge as a jiu-jitsu coach. Thank you so much, and I will be seeing you again very soon, probably.
I hope so. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for everything that you're doing. You're creating your own kind of jiu-jitsu community with this podcast and sharing so many amazing stories, and I've been enjoying listening to them. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I will take that. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for telling your friends about this show. And as soon as this episode ends, I'd really appreciate you dropping the show a rating and a review. Thank you so much again for listening. Catch you on the next episode of the Jiu Jitsu Podcast.